If Tremaine Jackson can coach half as good as he talks, PV might be a problem in 2025. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, of course, I'm Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Southern University women's basketball, first four matchup, but also why I think that the SWAC finals was actually held in the semifinals. In segment 2, we'll recap Alabama State's game against St. Francis in the first four round of the NCAA tournament. But this whole thing starts off with Germaine Jackson shooting his shot at Deion Sanders. And I say my opening statement with the most respect possible. But Germaine Jackson gonna talk. If it's one thing that I've noticed, is that Tremaine Jackson is going to talk. At the end of the day, we have not seen if he can back it up. His resume says that he can, but he has to prove it everywhere he goes, of course. But if he can coach half as good as he talks, it's gonna be a long day when we get to September. It's gonna be a long day when we get to that Labor Day Classic. It is, because Tremaine Jackson has been dropping soundbite after soundbite since coming to Prairie View A&M. I can't sit here and say that I paid a lot of attention to what Tremaine Jackson did when he was the head coach of Valdosta State. But what I say is, since he's came to PV, that man has been a walking soundbite. And it started on his introductory press conference. The first thing he said is, I'm not here to be an elite SWAC school. I'm here to be an elite FCS school. He already sets the separation between what has been a standard and what will be the standard. He's already set a separation on what goals are. I expect that to be showcased through scheduling. I expect that to be showcased through dominance in conference play. This is how I expect to see whether or not they are a elite FCS school. But when you just look at it, it makes me wonder. This whole situation makes me want to go back and track. How did Tremaine Jackson talk at Valdosta State? I hear the history. This the same guy who he was at Colorado Mesa, I believe it was. Say, yeah, go ahead and schedule that team. I know it's a top 5 school. We're going to beat them. I'm going to beat them. At the end of the day, Tremaine Jackson, he has called his shot. He's like Babe Ruth in a weird way. He has a Babe Ruth type of quality. I'm going to point out to the field, and this is about to be a home run, because before he gets to PV, he's at Colorado Mesa, and he says, I'm going to beat this team. Ends up being a top 5 ranked team. First time that the school had ever beaten a team of that caliber in school history. You get to Valdosta State, I don't know what he talked like, but he comes to PV, and the first thing he says is, I'm not here to be an elite SWAC school. Not, I'm going to bring a Celebration Bowl trophy to you. Not, we're going to make it to the SWAC championship and win. Not any of those relatively measured goals that you'll hear every single coach reiterate. No, he said, I'm not here to be an elite SWAC school. I'm here to be an elite FCS school. Then he goes on and says, yeah, Brian Kelly, cut it out with that whole circle 360 camera thing. They ain't got him no championships. I don't do all of that. I don't need to do all of that, because I look at Brian Kelly, who was on a 360 with these kids, and it hasn't brought him a ring. So now I have calling out the conference, I have calling out Brian Kelly, and this isn't a call out of tendencies or anything, but now he's calling out Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders is saying they want to play somebody for their spring game in Colorado. This man, Tremaine Jackson, said, I ain't hard to find, would love to be a part. It's respectful, the most respectful of all of the things he said, but honestly, only the Kelly thing was disrespectful. But he keeps shooting his shot at this guy and this team and that conference. Like, you see the way that he is positioning himself and the university in a short amount of time that Tremaine Jackson has been the head coach. And if he can back up the things that he's saying, Prairie View A&M is going to be a problem. If he can back up calling out the recruiting tactics and saying I can be a great recruiter without it, if he can back up saying we're here to be an elite FCS school, I think that would speak for itself. But you combine those two things with, yeah, Deion, we want to come play this game for you or play this game with you for your spring game. He's talking a big game, Tremaine Jackson is. He's talking a big game. And if he can back it up, I might be a little scared. But I'll be honest with you. I like this Tremaine Jackson guy. Don't kill me. I know my flag is here, but I kind of like this Tremaine Jackson guy because the way that he's talking, the way that he is stepping to the plate, it is a no fear mentality that I believe will be contagious to his team, will be contagious to his coaches. I think that it's an infectious energy that you can't help but take on. You don't have to be the guy who opens up your mouth and talks, but you can be the guy who has more confidence because you have a coach like that behind you. You have a coach who's going to ride for you. You have a coach who, if he's saying that in the private, or excuse me, if he's saying that in the public, I can only imagine it's that time some in the private. Tremaine Jackson is, I can't say he's going to be one of my favorite coaches because he do coach up the road. So I can't do that. But what I will say is, I ain't got no problem with him. I don't have any problem with him. I like the things that he's doing. He's putting himself in important conversations. But I don't think that going to play Colorado for their spring game is helpful. I wonder what the money would have to be like because the money has to be there. The travel expenses and everything that comes with it, it has to be there. And I don't think that Colorado would be willing to pay that for a spring game. I do think the whole FCS, FBS spring game makes a lot of sense. I think that it's a very beneficial idea for HBCUs, money aside. And I know a lot of people say, why play them? You're just going to get hurt, da. But the benefit of it is you do continue to get that look. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be at Colorado's pro day. I don't think that this is accidental. Tremaine Jackson did not say, oh, let me just go clout chase and run and say, yeah, let's play Colorado. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. I think that this was a very deliberate decision. I think this was a very deliberate call out because he understands the potential gain that can come from it. And spring games are changing. I do think that maybe some HBCUs might decide to step into that or not step into, but step with that change in spring games. I want to rattle off a list of teams who have actually canceled their spring game. You have Ohio State, Texas, USC, Florida State, Missouri, North Carolina State. Those have all just canceled the spring game. Then you have teams like Alabama, Arizona, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss who have alternative events instead of a spring game, right? And I guess that's just the way that things are going. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why they're canceling it. I guess it just isn't worth it. I know that trying to remember which exact coach it was that said this. I think it was Matt Rule in Nebraska. Yeah, because Nebraska also canceled. I think it was Matt Rule at Nebraska that said, basically, we're just trying to maximize our 15 days of practice. I guess the spring game doesn't help that. But in my opinion, I don't know how HBCUs would benefit from scheduling an alternative event, scheduling or just canceling it all together. I like the spring game. I'm a fan of it. I see that other people don't necessarily think it's that beneficial. Cool. This is not a trend I would want the HBCUs to follow. But playing another school for your spring game, it doesn't hurt your record. I would prefer to do it with in-state opponents. Travel expenses will be lower. It's a lot of things that you don't have to worry about. And you would get that extra benefit like it was a game, but it wouldn't go on your record. So you would still get that look. You would still get that experience. You still get that preparation. I'm not mad at it. And I think that some bigger schools would actually entertain the idea of playing an FCS school for your spring game because you don't want to go against somebody you may face in the college football playoffs. They don't want to do that. Like Colorado is not going to want to go against Illinois. And I know Coach Fran Brown actually chose to throw his name into the hat or throw his school's name into the circle as well. I don't think that that kind of thing happens. I think that Colorado would want to face a smaller school, an FCS opponent, just to have a different look. I don't think it's about competition. I think it's just solely about having a different look. I could be wrong, but that's the way that I view it, which is why I think an FCS school is likely, if they ever decide to cross the threshold for this type of thing. I think it's kind of likely. But let's break down the result of Alabama State's game against St. Francis in the first 4 round of the NCAA tournament as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries. That includes AI, IT, web development, and marketing. So, whether you need extra hands for a project or a long term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from. I love that for them, right? Visit upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's upwork.com, upwork.com to connect your top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode is also brought to you by Fabric. Life moves fast, especially when you're having a family. One day you're watching your kids take their final steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life is simple. It makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes. And in many cases, no health exam is even required. You can get millions of dollars in coverage for less than $1 a day. So protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On College Basketball. It's March Madness, so this is the podcast that you need to watch for the team or for the bracket of 64, which Alabama State clinched their spot in with a really clutch victory over St. Francis that we're about to break down, and I'm sure that they will break it down as well. So we had our first 4 matchup, not the first 4 games, but the first 4 means the first 4 teams out. And in Alabama State's case, this was a battle for a true 16 seed. Now, they won this game. They've earned the honor to play Auburn, the number 1 seed on their bracket. And this is the definition of March Madness. What Alabama State just pulled off is the literal definition of March Madness. It's what we are all sitting here waiting for. There's 2 things that we want during the NCAA tournament. One is absolutely dramatic finishes. We don't really care when we get them, but we want that. And number 2 is upsets. Now, while this didn't check the second box, it did fully check that first box. This was a thrilling game. On tomorrow's episode, you'll hear a 2-part interview between HBCU Nightly and myself. I'll tell you the God's honest, it was supposed to be 1 segment, but we ended up talking about these games, the Black College Invitational Championship, and it ended up going for 2 segments. So we probably won't be breaking down Southern women's basketball. I don't think we will. We'll probably find something else for that first lead topic, but that's okay. Anyway, you'll hear that interview on tomorrow's episode. During our interview, or before our interview, really, I'm telling them, look, I don't think that Alabama State is going to pull this off, because at that moment, it felt like every time Alabama State would get close, St. Francis would pull away just a little bit. It wasn't a lot, but it would be, oh, it's a 1-point game. And I look back up and it's a 5-point game, because that's just what it felt like the ebbs and flow of the game were leading to a St. Francis close victory. So we end up finishing the interview, and it's 2.5 left. I look over. I said, "Oh, Alabama State up 2 points. 2.5 left." We rush off the call. Boom, we gone. Now we're going to watch this game. And this is why people love March Madness. It is because it's a drop whatever you're doing and pay attention type of event. Doesn't matter if it's 216 Cs battling it out. When you're watching that game on whatever network that it was broadcast on, whatever Turner network that it was broadcast on, it feels like a big time game, right? Like these are two schools who conference wise, they probably don't get a lot of love, but St. Francis versus Alabama State felt like a big time game, especially when you get down to the end. The end of this game was the definition of March Madness in the sense that there were 3 seconds left. It just felt like Alabama State was about to go into OT. I did not have confidence ever until the game was over, or really until that shot was made with 1 second left. But Alabama State, they couldn't close out on a certain possession. Then they follow it up with a rush possession by St. Francis that Alabama State forced. St. Francis dribbles the ball out of bounds underneath their basket. So now Alabama State, the Hornets have to go the length of the basketball court with 3 seconds. I'm thinking that they're going to do a play where you take one side of the court, take a player on one side of the court, you run through and kind of make a loop, and you try to get some steam before you get the ball so you can get as close to full speed as possible. No, they chunked the ball all the way down the court, probably to about the free throw line. The ball gets bobbled. It was not a clean catch by anybody. You had a couple of Alabama State players who were fighting for it. One gets it, puts it up. Boom, 1 second left. You're up by 2. It was an absolute dramatic finish that would get any basketball, not even fan, any basketball casual excited, because it's one of those situations where it's not likely. If you play basketball or watch basketball at all, being full court, 3 seconds left, it's doable. It's not improbable. It's doable. But throwing a Hail Mary to the other side of the court, it just typically doesn't happen that way. It just typically doesn't work out in your favor, but it did for the Hornets. That was an incredible finish. It was a finish that made me actually wish that I stayed on the phone with him, but I don't think that he was next to a TV because he asked me the score of the game. So I don't think that he was next to a TV, but it's one of those ones where you want to be sitting next to somebody at a sports bar and watching. That's what it was. You want to be sitting next to your friend watching this game at a sports bar, and everybody goes crazy because no one sees this coming, but everybody's watching. Especially in the first four, it's the only game on. Everybody is watching, and the crowd goes wild, as the cliche says. This was an incredible finish. This was a monumental finish. This is going to get you an extra paycheck. It's a paycheck that goes on for a couple of years, a winning check, a participation check, and I think you will get another participation check. I think that is the case. But who cares about the finances right now? Who cares about the finances right now? I want to read a couple of stats that I think really tell a story. Now, obviously, Alabama State's going to chunk them threes up. They're 9-29 from beyond the arc. You know how that goes. They're not going to get a lot of free throws, and I think that's probably related to the amount of threes that they shoot, because you're not getting in there and getting a lot of contact. They shot 1 of 4 from free throws, so it wasn't great, and they didn't have a lot of attempts. But this was something that I did notice. Offensive rebounds. So Alabama State had 12 offensive rebounds compared to St. Francis's 3. That tells you second chance points, and they don't have second chance points on here. There's a couple of stats that I wish were here for the game that aren't, excuse me, but those 12 offensive rebounds means that you're getting multiple shots at the basket. You're getting multiple shots at getting points on the board, and I would like to know how many times they delivered, but that's a maximum of 36 points if you shot threes on every single one and made them. But I don't feel like that was the case early on against Jackson State. And to have so many more defensive rebounds, to allow so many little offensive rebounds from St. Francis, I think that it showcased that you were frequently getting second chance points and not allowing many, because you only get three rebounds. So that means you're playing good defense, getting good rebounds, and you're moving on to your next possession, not giving multiple shots at the basket. Lastly, and the one that probably stands out more than anything else to me, is that it flashed up that Alabama State only has 9 turnovers per game, which is fifth fewest. I can't talk today apparently, but it's fifth fewest in the NCAA. In this game, they only had 6 and they forced 15. I think that Alabama State probably doesn't get enough credit because 3-pointers are the headliner. They play really good defense. They have really good hands on defense, and they do a great job of forcing fast break points. The other stat that I wish was here in addition to second chance points is points off of turnover. I would love to know what the points off turnover were, because this was as I'm watching the game, this was my favorite. I'm not gonna say the best, but this was my favorite source of offense from the Hornets. Is sometimes it was shoot the gap on a pass. Sometimes it was just we're gonna reach through and we're gonna poke it away. But Alabama State's hands on defense are incredible. Matter of fact, let's look up where they are in the SWAC right now when it comes to steals, because just watching it off the last couple of games, I struggle to believe that they are not high in steals. Let's see, miscellaneous assist steals. Well, Alabama A&M is only fifth, surprisingly, in fifth in steals per game. That's actually really surprising to me because they have really good defensive intensity with the pressure, with the hands, with the technique. They're always reaching, and I don't think that they get a lot of fouls, but they're always reaching for the ball. So we're going to push forward. We're going to look at Southern now. We're going to preview this game that they have against UC San Diego. We may or may not cover it. If they win, we'll probably cover it the next week. If they don't win, we're not going to cover it. I'm just going to be honest with you. Not because I don't want to cover an L, but only because it'll be Monday by that point. And if they win, then we will cover their journey through the NCAA tournament, which would be 2 games. But see y'all on that on Monday. Tomorrow, I don't know what we're going to lead with. It'll probably be something football related. But then also we're going to wrap it up with a 2-part interview about the Black College Invitational Championship, something I think we should all support. I think we should all put our faith behind and our support behind. So I look forward to you hearing my conversation with Joshua Sims Sr. on tomorrow's episode. In the meantime, in between time, or excuse me, actually, we're going to segment 3. So let's go ahead and get to segment 3 as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked the bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. So you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and make wealth. Now, that being said, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all of the stress. So tell me what you really want to do. Because if I were you, I'd take control of my finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Southern is playing in the first 4, but honestly, to me, I feel like the SWAC championship game was held in the SWAC semifinals. This is no disrespect to Alcorn. No disrespect to them. I think that we really should salute them for what they did, because they've made it to the into the SWAC title 2 years in a row. The SWAC title game 2 years in a row, despite being a real underdog. I think they were the 6th seed this year. The year prior, they were the 7th seed, if I'm not mistaken. So you're looking at 2 years where we counted them out, and they made a Cinderella-esque climb to the SWAC championship game. I applaud them for that. I honor them for that. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at SWAC women's basketball, we cared about Jackson State, Southern, Alabama A&M, and Texas Southern. Those are the 4 schools that we cared about. And we only got to see that 4 face off once. And I was in the semifinals. We expected it to be a clean sweep, maybe one team loses. But I expected to see one of those 4 or 2 of those 4 in the finals, right? So Southern and Jackson State were on the bracket together, and then Texas Southern and Alabama A&M were on the bracket together. I knew one of them could get upset in the first round, but I didn't expect Alcorn to knock off Alabama A&M and then come back and knock off TSU as well. That was not my expectation. So because of that, the main attraction of the tournament for the women's side becomes the semifinal game. And I don't know the exact timing of it. If Alcorn had already beat TSU, I don't know. But what I'll say is, in hindsight, I'll just say in hindsight, all eyes were on that game. All eyes were on that game. And I think that it's hard to say that if Jackson State would have won, that they would have beat Alcorn. But Alcorn beat Southern earlier this year, by the way. But when you lose by 20, I got to write you off after the fact. I didn't write them off before because I know that Alcorn won. But after the fact, man, it was a much more competitive game. It was a game that much more of us looked forward to. This is a game that we actually wanted to see, and that was Southern versus Jackson State. So that was, in my opinion, the true test, the true main event, the true SWAC title game, because those were the 2 best teams, 2 of the 4 best teams. Those are 2 of the 4 best teams, and they would have had the advantage there. Now, Alcorn did start off the game hot. They both had 20 points, Southern and Alcorn, in that title game. But then a 16-4 second quarter by Southern gave them a lead that they never let go. And that strong defense continued throughout the entirety of the game. Alcorn had 44 total points. They had 8 points in the fourth quarter. So I thought the Southern just in general made pretty quick work. And now they're going to the NCAA tournament game. And they're going to go against UC San Diego, right? And facing California, San Diego, that's another small school. But if Southern's able to win, that gives them some money. Now, I know we talked about the whole first 4 versus being a flat-out 16 seed on yesterday's episode, but you got to think about this. The conference is going to split all of the winnings. The SWAC and the MEAC are getting 2 checks. They're getting a men's check and a women's check for sure, just for making it. But any checks that you win, or any checks that come from when you win, that's additional money, and they have better opportunities to win. So Southern's going to be a play-in team. If they're able to win, that's a secondary check. I don't know how the conference divides that up. If it goes Southern wins, so now they get to be, well, I'm kind of spoiling it now. I'm recording this before the game because the Mouth of the South gets sleepy, and I don't want to get tired after the game to record all 3 segments. But I'll focus on Southern women's basketball. I think I said Southern men's basketball anyway. So Southern women's basketball is, if they win, I don't know if that only goes to the women or if that goes to the entire basketball, men and women's side. I don't know if that goes to the entirety of the conference, but I do know it's an advantage. And I didn't get to give my opinion yesterday. I would rather be a play-in team and win. I'd rather be a play-in team and win than be a 16 seed. I may even argue I'd rather be a play-in team regardless, knowing that most people don't think like Darrion does. Most people don't count out those teams who make it to the play-in and stop at the play-in. But that's just me. This is Southern's second title, second appearance in 3 years. You got to give them some credit for that, but I'm ready to see what they have. It's tonight, UC San Diego. I can't wait to watch that game. We recapped the Alabama State game versus St. Francis. Now we're going to look towards this game with Southern versus UC San Diego. We will probably recap that. We have a guest coming on Friday, so we'll have to get to most of our March Madness coverage next week, but we will get to this game, the play-in games, on Thursday. So in the meantime, in between time, until the next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed, peace.